Hello, everyone, and welcome to Horizons. We'll give people about a minute or two to step into the room with us as we get ready to talk to our speaker for today, Mo Rotibi. So I'll give y'all about like a minute or two. Joining in, we're just giving people about a minute or two to get logged in with us. We'll give it like 30 more seconds and we'll start. Where are y'all checking in from right now? We have some Austin folks. We have people outside of Texas logging in. Let us know. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Go ahead and get started. Okay, we have Ethan from Austin, Texas. Glad to have you here, Ethan. Nehemiah, Austin in the building, represent. Okay. Okay. So let's go. My name is Renata Estes, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator for AUTMHQ. And today we're going to be interviewing, interviewing our speaker, Mo Rotibi. But before then, let me tell you about Horizons. So Horizons is our speaker series where our speakers share their unique experiences navigating the tech world, overcoming challenges, and looking forward to their dreams. The reason why the series is so important to us is because we're trying to solve for this problem, being the lack of talent in tech. So there's already an underrepresentation of Blacks and Hispanics in the tech industry, because Blacks and Hispanics consist of 31% of the US population, but they make up less than 13% of the US tech ecosystem. And with that, overall, there's a lack of talent to meet the demand. There's around 245,000 new tech jobs created in 2021, and I'm sure more jobs since then. But there hasn't been enough talent to fill these roles. So throughout this series, we want to share with y'all other diverse folks that have gotten into the industry and what their experiences have been, so that if you are someone that is talented and in tech or would like to increase your skill set and get into tech, we would love for y'all to stick around and follow the series and listen in on people's stories to see how you could do the same thing. All right, so today's speaker is Rotibi. She is a senior financial analyst doing financial planning and analysis with Allegio Health Research. And how she got into this role is a convergence of resources, skills, and timing. So let's welcome her to the stage. Woo!
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here, Mo. We really appreciate it. So let me get right into it. Tell us a bit about your background.
Yes, so I am from Southern Illinois, or Illinois, Chicago in whole. And I studied finance and accounting when I went to university and got my MBA with a concentration in finance. That sounds very linear. It is not. So it kind of goes to explaining my next step in my career path. So it's helpful to go backwards before we move forward. Going to university wasn't on my radar at all. I ran track in high school and then got to my university. Yeah, sorry, shut down the house. I ran track in high school and was recruited to my university, Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. Go Salukis. It is a odd town and an odd university that fulfills a specific niche. And I was so lucky to be recruited there. And I had no idea the environment I was entering. Again, college, university wasn't really on my radar. That just wasn't how my life had been stacked up to be. And so I was just kind of thrown into the deep end with one thing on my mind was, okay, I guess I can run. Like, I guess this works. And that point forward, I think within my freshman year, I was in the College of Business, chose finance. Accounting and finance are right next to each other. And so I graduated with my degree in finance. And in my mind, my next step was to join a Fortune 500 company. That was that phrase that's kind of like join the tech field. It's like right there, or go into like that specific goal industry. But I didn't know what that really meant for me. So after graduating, I looked at a few companies. I'd done some internships during my time, and I just didn't feel that I was ready to be in that sphere. So I stayed in Southern Illinois, and I worked as a researcher in the criminology department. And so I've actually been to every prison in the state of Illinois doing audits. And so, yeah, it was educational.
Okay.
So this whole path was, I have this goal or an idea of a goal, but I'm not really sure how to get there. And I don't know what I need to be or who I want to be in that space. But the tech world, the Fortune 500 world was very much on my horizon. Sorry, I thought that was very...
I love the plug.
So after working for technically the state of Illinois and for my university, I then went back and got my MBA with a concentration in investment finance. And so within my MBA, I worked on a program for incoming students to make the connection between coding, so specifically Python, and how it affects the financial industry. And so one thing I always picked up when I was still in college was there's a gap between what I'm learning and how to implement it. And so during my master's, the goal was to at least close that gap a little bit. So that's my educational background. During that time, I ran track.
Wow. Wow. And that's so interesting how you went from how something as like seemingly innocent as like track, how track could have brought you this far.
Yeah,
Like,
it was, yes, it was a weird, odd, hard to manage or understand the journey, but I was in for the ride.
yes. And I'm so glad you shared that because I feel like people always think that to get into tech, it has to be like, when you're 5, you had a love for computers and then so you just kept going and that's how you ended up here. And you were like, no, I was running.
I was
I was,
running.
I was running laps.
I think a big part of the goal for my career and the oddness and flexibility that the tech industry has and the finance industry has is there are pieces of it that are constant. They're not going to change. Your skill base is what's constant. Once you can hone your strengths and you know yourself, it can be replicated anywhere. So that was a big reason why I chose finance and accounting. Accounting manages the past. Finance is able to take a blend that looks towards the future. And so as I've entered the tech space, because I'm in finance and because it's such a structured field or department or activity, there are unique ways to explore tech specific companies and their goals. And so for me, I will stay within finance, but finance is a tool to apply to any industry. And my goal is to bridge the gap between not just finance and accounting, but how it applies to operations into a physical end goal.
Nice. Okay. So then let's get more into like the tech side of things and into your tech journey because I heard a lot of, finance and accounting and bridging that gap there. But then, to go from track to financing your MBA, I'm like, how do we get to tech?
Yeah. So I had a few internships through university in corporate finance and just in corporate companies. So I did an internship with Harley Davidson and with GE. And I found quite the distance between what I can do with my hands, what my work can do and speak to, and how it impacts the people around me, my environment, or not the world at large, but generally, what is our jobs? What impact do we have? But as an undergrad, that was not my focus. I was thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I needed to get those needs met. And
Say
that's
that.
nothing to be like ashamed of, or in hindsight, I don't regret trying to focus on my base level needs. It actually takes a while to cover those base psychological success, safety, feeling of belonging, those basic levels before you're able to dream or imagine what next steps could look like. So after getting all of those needs met, I realized, oh, I can want more for my career beyond just having a job, which also I do live in the sphere of it's okay just to work. It's okay just to work. Outside of work, you can be a good friend, you could be a community member, you can be a parent, your hobbies can define you. Your job doesn't have to. But at this point, I realized, wait, I can have a job that I feel is a part of me and I enjoy doing every day. And so it took me a while to then go back and kind of imagine what that would look like.
Mhm.
So I chose to kind of remove myself from what I built or what was given as a stable position to see what I can get into. There was a level of freedom in that. So I was in Chicago. I was working for Guggenheim, which is a subsidiary of the museum. So it was at Guggenheim Investments. I was working on the mutual funds. And I left Guggenheim and moved to Austin cold turkey.
What?
And I don't recommend it, but I also recommend it. I do.
Okay. But why
Um,
Austin?
it was on my list of locations, and I saw that there was breadth in life in the city, in the tech industry.
Okay.
I was looking at the financial industry in New York. I was looking in Seattle. I was looking in California, but I felt like there's just this open flexibility that Austin had.
Okay. So there was already that inkling of like going towards tech. And so you were like, let me literally be in a tech city.
Yes. And as tech was expanding, this is pre-COVID, like 3 years prior to COVID. As tech was expanding, you can see the impact of your actions within your company and your field and the end goal. So
Okay.
there's something gratifying in seeing your work come to fruition in real time. Even though, again, because I'm in finance, it's quite tucked in. You don't really know what the financial team is doing, but you hope that they're doing it properly so operations can continue to do their day job. So there was this gratifying push and pull available in tech spaces and in Austin. Um,
Mm.
so that was my desire. The tech market is still open and it's still flexible, and there is a path to be carved, and they can all be individual paths and they don't have to look like each other.
Okay. And something, a word that sticks with me that you said was freedom, and how, after a certain point working in finance, that you felt like now you had this freedom to maybe think about something else or do something else. And I just wanted to point that out because there are some people that when it comes to that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that think like either tech can be a way to go ahead and meet my needs and then I can have the freedom to do whatever, or, I can use something else to meet my needs and then give myself the space to like dream and think of what else can we do here. So I just want to point that out because, there's more than one way to achieve a dream for yourself. And I just like that the steps you took, you were like, no, I had the freedom and then it brought me here. And I don't know if you want to speak more to that, but that just really stuck out to me.
Yeah, I had a lot of good relationships that encouraged, or rather supported me during those bumpy times where I wasn't sure of myself, where I wasn't sure my needs were going to be met, where I was trying to experiment and learn new things, but wasn't really sure. So a lot of my relationships helped at least bring me some of that comfort when it comes to stepping out of the norm. But as I found, one thing about I did choose finance, um, and other departments and fields are able to do this. Once you know what you know, the baseline, it's up from there. You can do anything. It's like understanding a base level of code. Once you see that code replicated in other industries and other programs, you have a handle on what you're doing and what you could do next. Finance is the same way. So it took a while to understand those moving pieces. But now I can go into different industries that I'm passionate about or see life in, and bring my skills with me, which feels very freeing.
You better say that. I love that. So then next, tell us a bit about your current role.
I can do. So I work for Elga Health Research, and it is the best way to describe the company is to start from the bottom up, or rather overview. So Elga facilitates access to clinical trials, and we maintain the connection between physicians and their patients. So we helped, for example, bring Moderna to market. And so we partner with Moderna, which is the CRO or the sponsor. And we partner with hundreds of doctors' offices who have access to their patients and their client base, their patients, and be able to deliver the vaccine. That's one example. We work over, I think, 12 therapeutic areas, from oncology to vaccine studies, to deliver new clinical trials to a diverse patient base. So generally, just an overview of the very niche industry. Most clinical trials go to larger hospitals or company bases, and they have a limited amount of patient access, or patients can only access certain areas or certain hospitals, which limits the amount of data and the amount of aid that general people can get. So from the bottom up, what I do, let's say one patient goes to a doctor's offices that's partnered with Eligo, and they go in for their second round of the vaccine trial. On my end, I've now measured that patient. We have the data on when they went in for their trial, and we facilitate financial reconciliation between the sponsor, so Moderna, and the doctor's office, and the patient that may have been given a stipend for coming in. Our company also would manage patient travel. So if they need help getting from their home to that doctor's office, we can facilitate that. As we roll up, we now have, I've only counted for 2 delivery lines: patient engagement, those that reached out to the patient, and patient travel, those that picked up the patient. As we roll up, we look across hundreds of projects doing the same thing over hundreds of doctors' offices. So there are hundreds of thousands of data points for each patient, each project, each delivery line, if it's patient engagement or travel, or if it's recruitment or marketing for a specific project or trial for a doctor-specific site. So it gets very, very niche. But on my end, as we keep pulling back, I do, on my accounting side of my role, I do reconciliation month over month. So closing out what we thought would happen. So how many patients would come in versus what actually happened, and reconciling that with the sponsor, but also reconciling that with the doctor's office. And then the doctor's office is able to reconcile that with their patient. I do perform variance analysis, look through our largest indicators on how our financial team is doing, but also each operational team. And then I pull those together and deliver it to senior management. So overall, I work in the weeds. I work in the weeds over multiple data sources, but at the top line, at the highest point, if one of our project managers wants to know how a site is performing, I can provide that information and do it on a quarterly, monthly, weekly basis as needed, depending on the length of the project and the number of patients. So that's a little bit of what I do.
Okay. So let me try to make sure I understand.
Sorry, it was a lot. It's a lot.
No, it's fine. So more or less, it's kind of like, there's a lot of talking about Moderna and the vaccines, and a lot of science and medicine and things involved. And it's like there's certain things that might be being, sent to market or introduced to us, to the regular people. And you're behind the scenes kind of watching the numbers and making sure, like, hey, how many patients are participating in this, or, who are all the people involved in this, and then letting your stakeholders know, like, hey, so this is what's happening. Here's the numbers to show this. Here's the numbers to show that. Are we doing well or are we not?
Right. There can be another example. If we see a contract is available for a specific trial, we hope that it would be placed with a certain physician's office in an area that has all of the right equipment to be able to perform that trial. So
Oh.
our goal is a certain number of projects need certain amounts of equipment, and we are contracted with 5 physicians' offices that have that equipment already set up. And so there's this immediate drive to make that connection because they have the patient population, the equipment is available. So it won't stretch the bandwidth of that physician's office. And then we can go back and see like, okay, we did capitalize or make the most of the equipment that's been invested and rented at that site. We reconcile how many ice bags have been procured at the site to keep any specimens or tests viable. So there's a full bandwidth, and somehow it's all in layman's terms. And so in other financial fields, we're only dealing with dollars, but in this field, you get to see the impact on each patient that comes through for a visit.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that breakdown, because I was like, it sounds like she's doing amazing work. But
I'm just a little guy, okay? I'm just a little guy.
Thank you. Okay, so then the next thing is, as you've been going through your journey, what are some things that you would have done differently?
Right, this was actually a hard one to think through, because I feel confident, but I don't like to look back on my mistakes for too long. But it took me a little bit to think about it. I guess I would flip, try harder to go further. You don't know what you don't know. And I've been saying that since like my freshman year. I don't know. You don't know what you don't know, but it's really good to try to figure it out. Accept the gaps in your understanding and knowledge. Like really just accept it. Like it's okay. Remember, especially if you're in a position where you've covered some of your basic needs, you're in a stable environment, it's okay to acknowledge you don't know a good amount, that there's still a lack. It's super, super helpful. And once you let that kind of sink into your bones, you can do something about it and it not feel daunting and scary. I didn't let that happen initially. I was very blinders on because everything still was daunting and scary. But once I think when I left Illinois and came to Texas, I was a little bit more okay with accepting what I didn't know. And so in trying harder to go further, because my basic needs weren't met, it's very hard to go outside of yourself. It's very hard to dream about the I don't know, I don't want to seem like corny or turn my nose up at the life that your career can give you. But in reality, things are hard. And it's okay to cover just what's hard within your career. And getting that level of safety and base is so needed. But knowing that you can push the envelope a little bit earlier, give it a go. I'll give it a little wiggle. Yeah. So go harder, a little bit further.
Love that.
Kind of connects to embracing healthy risk. I've had colleagues that have taken more open risks and chances than I have. I think they had a little bit more of a healthy base to bounce from. But in seeing where they are now and being able to walk this walk with them, I look back and think like, I think I could be a little bit riskier. I think I could risk a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah. In the balance of exploring and still wanting to figure things out, knowing that my bases are needed, it's okay to risk it. These days are long. um,
Yes.
and it's worth exploring and having that level of fulfillment to the right depth. I think
Mhm.
we overstate how much we need fulfillment in our careers.
Mhm.
It is our career can just be a vehicle to other parts of our life, or your career can be the largest part in your life, but you can choose between the two.
I'm so glad you said that because that's even an issue I've dealt with at times in my career is being like, if I'm not in love with it, if I'm not passionate about it, then, I just can't do it. And there are times where my parents are like, if you don't go get yourself some money so then later you can do whatever you're talking about, like, it's okay. You don't have to be in love with every job you do. So I'm so glad that you said that.
Yes. And going into embracing risk, a good couple of my friends I'd see them not in love with their job and then they leave. And I'm like, that's crazy. but But they were right. They were right. They were fine. They were perfectly fine. So it's kind of playing both sides. I don't love anything for that long. Like, I don't like my nails that long. I don't like my clothes that long. And so to love my job immediately off the jump, bonkers. But
Yeah.
there's, I know I'm playing devil's advocate for both sides, but there is a balance between falling in love with your career and being okay not being in love.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
And
So
oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
My last number 2 was being courageous and exploring. I'm not. I get overwhelmed very easily and I have a lot of questions, and I'm not good at asking questions. And so they end up staying inside my head for a lot longer than I hope. And so it takes me a bit longer to explore. And then my courage isn't always there. So if there's something I could do better, it would be to be courageous.
And so we do have a question from Ethan where he does ask, what risk are you wishing that you would have explored? And what's the healthy base that you were alluding to?
Yes. What risks do I wish I explored? Oh, I'll go back to the healthy base. Um, hmm. Uh, if you have to go into the office for work, but you could only I'm going to be very frank. If you have to go into the office for work, but you could only afford a car that's around $2,000 and you live in the city of Chicago where it snows and sleets, your car is going to break down, which will impact how and what time you get to work and how your colleagues see you and your performance overall. And so it's important to be able to have a vehicle that reflects your status and your where you see yourself going, knowing that others do judge you on that, even though it shouldn't have a large impact on how you see yourself. It does. So there's this fine line of knowing who you are, but also having to fulfill those physical needs that are a bit frustrating, especially when you know who you are, and yet you do have to play the field. And so my healthy bases were heavily based on my relationships. That's like the final thing I have is friendship. Ooh, friendship. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Mm.
They're based on my friendships. They're based on my relationships. And then knowing that I had a healthy support system where if I felt like I was falling, I knew who I could call and they were there for me. And so in those moments, back to that car analogy, you're stranded side of the road in the cold winter of Chicago. If you don't know, you don't know. And you call your buddy and they come pick you up and take you to work and they give you a little coin for lunch, or they bring you some McDonald's on the
Yeah.
way. That
Yeah.
is a day that would have taken you 2 weeks to recover from.
So that healthy base is like your relationships, having good friends or, family members, whatever that is, but also having what you need to fulfill even your basic needs, like having a reliable car, having at least a base salary that you can make sure you have food, or, you have that ground level of like, these things will be okay. Things here, when it comes to my food and my security and my shelter, it's good enough, it's healthy enough, and that from here I can like keep going. That's that
Yeah.
healthy.
Yes, I think often we'll pride ourselves with our bootstrappiness, being able to make ends meet,
Yeah.
being able to solve things on our own. But that takes up bandwidth. That takes up a
Yes.
ton of bandwidth. It takes a ton of energy, and that means you're pulling your efforts away from dreaming and exploring. If you explore and then you remember yourself, and then you get overwhelmed with what's around you rather than what you're looking towards. Or you can live in two different spaces where you're imagining and seeing yourself like this, but you're living in this space, and those two don't meld. There's a gap there that's risky. So that's the healthy base. Risks I wish I explored. I think in university, oh, definitely. All things, yes.
Oh my gosh. I'm done. You said it's definitely cold, but the popcorn's great.
I can digress about my love for Chicago for hours. So I need to stay focused, my friend.
Yes.
I can
yes. So what risk are you wishing you would have taken?
So something that is not important, but has a huge impact on me. I'm 6'2". I'm very, very large. And, and now that we've met, you're like, whoa.
Yes.
Yeah. And in a lot of spaces, I end up interacting with a lot of people, even though I'm a bit on the shyer side, but you wouldn't know that because I'm a giant. And so because of my fear, I would remove myself from spaces where I didn't really have sure footing, or I didn't know how to speak to the interests. I didn't know how to speak to the interests in the room. I didn't have a breadth of knowledge for everything going on around me. And so I fundamentally did not explore. It just made me feel out of my depths. And so now looking back, there were organizations at my university, there were events that even when I was in corporate finance, that I could have attended. There were people that I wish now I had in-depth conversations with, that would facilitate more of my understanding. So being able to ask the right questions and try new things. I limited myself that way because I just didn't feel comfortable.
Wow. And I'm glad that you said that, because I know, especially the number of people that are watching now or people that will see this, there are a lot of people that don't take certain risks because they're like, I look a certain way, I have a disability, I feel a certain way, I'm the minority, or maybe I'm not as brilliant as these people. Like, there's so many people that aren't taking risks because they feel like they just don't fit in for one reason or another. And I think it's really important that people take the risk anyway, because what's the worst that's going to happen? Either people will say like, no, like you're not a part of our group, and then you'll just find a different group, or you might meet someone in the room that's like, wow, you're super cool, and I'm glad we're talking. So you just never know.
That's true.
Next question from our audience is, how do you deal with risk if you've failed at multiple risks?
Yes, been there. Yeah. Okay. I know this is odd. I'm going to keep repeating it. I go back to my base. Things that I know that are true and that I understand about myself and that are not changing after failure after failure, success, failure, there's something that's always true going across. It's my skill set, how I hold myself, the knowledge I have, the skills that keep me passionate, and the people that surround me to kind of remind me about who I am in those moments.
Mhm.
And then after I remember who I am, I can then go and look at my failures and see what went wrong. And when you're reminded who you are, those people that reminded you are now invested. So
Mm,
you can go and look at your failures and you're like, I did this wrong. And they're like, no, you didn't. Or
okay. Mm,
it was this. And they're like, it was not. And that wasn't it. And it's super helpful to get that 360 view because different fall points, different stumbling blocks, like different situations have different stumbling blocks, and it's helpful to identify those. And sometimes it's timing, other times it's the community, it's the teammates you have, it's being short-sighted or too far-sighted, or being able to, over time, accept what strengths you do and don't have.
yes.
So that's how I was able to deal with multiple failures is going back to the basic things I know.
I love that. I'm here for that. I'm here for that because that's what helps me too. Like when I failed, it's my base. It's the people that know me, that love me, that support me, my mentors, whoever. And then also, like you said, just you knowing yourself, me knowing myself. That's like, you know what? Actually, no, I'm not finna beat myself up about this. Or, take note of like, I mean, we could have done better though, but like it's okay. It's okay. So
Yeah,
let
I
me go
definitely.
to no, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah, this
'Cause yes, share with us your biggest piece of advice because it goes along with all of this.
um tacking that note onto my biggest piece of advice. I love people that tell me I'm wrong. I do. If I got
Me
a
too.
pal, a buddy that tells me that I'm wrong, chef's kiss.
Yes.
I think in watching the trends over the past 10 years and how we uplift each other, I think we swung a little bit too sweet on that. And that sweetness feeds more into our pride and not into our core. And it doesn't sustain us. Like there's no meat and potatoes in that sweetness. There should be a level of truth. And so over my
Yes.
entire career, one of my, I won't say it's skill, but I'm known for friendship. Okay. My best skill, my best output is friendship. It's relationships. And being able to identify a good relationship, someone that you want to keep by your side and wants to keep you by their side. So it's not
Yes.
just being connected to someone who's powerful or well knowledged, but someone you can be a friend to, and someone where they've got your back too. There can be times where it's a pal that walks side by side. It could be someone that walks ahead of you. It could be someone that's pushing and watching you from behind. Because if you slip back too far, they're gonna get you.
Exactly.
If they're far ahead of you, you at least have like someone in your line of sight. Because I ran track, like I hated cross country. I got duped into running cross country. So part of my process was over the 3.2 miles, I would turn my brain off and I'd lock in on the person ahead of me. I would
Wow.
just sit on them. There's maybe 2 stride lengths ahead of me, but they're helping me keep pace. And then either I'd pass them or we'd finish together, but they would thank me because I was behind them pushing them, and I would thank them because they were pulling me forward. But you can't do that on the track. That's rude.
Okay.
Don't do that on the 400 meters. You can't do that. Cross country, you can.
Yeah, you're like, don't actually do that though.
So It's, if you even smell a good friend, they smell sweet. Their perfume, there's oil, there's fragrance. There's a depth, there's a richness to good friendships. Building that community, like actually building it, because it's very difficult. It calls for truth and honesty, a lot of grace and care, and it's a lift, but highly recommend. 10 out of 10.
Yes. Thank you. So then a last question that I will ask, for all of our viewers and everyone, if you had to give another piece of advice for people that are taking the non-traditional route to get into tech, what would you say?
Taking the non-traditional route.
They're like, I'm interested in tech, but I started off as a veterinarian, or I started off as a librarian or something, and I just don't know, like, how do I even make this happen? It seems so, far from me.
A career isn't linear. As though there are a lot of careers that are, there are a lot that aren't. And it's not well publicized, but it's so true. So really just, again, getting that base. For me, it's relationships. My skills were set from university, so that may not be everyone's story. But certifications, specific classes, doing a unpaid internship or work alongside your job to strengthen those base skills is gold. It's gold. That is your base. That allows you to fall. You can fall back on it. You can trust in it. You could build from it. And though also, if you're entering a field that you didn't grow in, you think differently from people within the field. Your expectations, your directions are going to be fundamentally different. And that is good, because there are moments where when you bounce around and you interact with different people in different organizations, you hear something that doesn't sound right, but because everyone's been in that environment for so long, they don't hear it. And your experience allows you to hear that and make an educated decision on what to do next. So for those who are nonlinear like I am, take advantage of it. And there are a lot more nonlinear people than you can imagine. And there's that, again, that base that you build off of, you rely on. I can think of, one example. I had a dear friend, or I still have a dear friend, who was a chemical engineer, quit her job, decided to be a financial analyst, and is doing that full time. She's in her 50s and made that decision maybe a decade ago. That's a fully matured career, ended, restarted. I have friends that took the bar in Illinois, didn't pass it, took it again, finally passed it, then moved to a different state and had to take it again. It's it's painful. It's frustrating. There's these stops and starts that are non-linear, and yet I think those are some of the most successful friendships and careers that I've seen.
Wow. That was good. That was good. So for those of y'all that are taking the non-traditional route, you're starting from a place that you don't think will get you to tech, or you are, like she said, you did one career and then you just completely stopped it, full stop, and did another career. All of it's possible, because life in general is non-linear. Every day, whether it's with family, friends, career, whatever it is, it's always something new can start tomorrow, and that's not a bad thing. Change typically means growth. So it's okay. If you're changing, that means you're still alive. That means you're still growing. That means you're still evolving. So thank you so much to Rotibi for joining us and sharing her journey with us today. We appreciate you so much. Thank you. And so If you want to share your own story in tech, getting into tech, whatever that may be, please scan the QR code on the screen and submit our form to be invited to speak at our next Horizons episode. We would love to hear what you have going on, what you would like others to know, the encouraging words that you have to share. Let's see. And coming up, we do have some upcoming events. So on Thursday, February 20th, we're having another in-person Tech Bites event with Salesforce. So come through. It's going to be a great time. Networking, diverse folks talking about a variety of experiences, getting into tech, already being in tech, pivoting while they're in the space. Whatever that is, please. We've already had 3 or 4 already with Meta, TikTok, Oro. And we just want to keep it going. The next event is also, we're partnering with Third Spaces for an event on Saturday, February 22nd called Celebrate Black Austin. On February 22nd, it's going to be a whole block party. We're going to shut it down, 11th Street in East Austin. So y'all are invited to that as well. But you can also look on our website at www.autumnhq.org/events to RSVP to our events. And that's all we have. Thank y'all for tuning in. We appreciate you so much, and we'll see you at our next Horizons episode. Later.